What's good? What's good? It's the one. Ooh, excuse me. The only but what do I know boxing coming back at y'all with another one, man. So I was watching my unc's, my OG, my unc, the big homie 78 Sports TV. Shout out to him and all that he's done to just this beautiful sport, man. Like this, you know, I know a lot of people don't like or like to hate on the OG, but I'm a lifetime family member. But anyways, I was watching his video this morning. He was talking about how Canelo Alvarez was pretty much saying that Terence Crawford has never faced an elite fighter. And I wanted to go ahead and piggyback off of that because like this is just ridiculous, man. Like, and a lot of times, bro, it's sad that we're in a time where it's like, bro, people act like it's almost like people are treating boxing like it's a gang or something. Like it's like illegal to be a fan of two different, fighters that are rivals or whatnot, right? And this is coming from an Errol Spence fan, right? I was going for Errol Spence in the fight with or against Terence Crawford. But here's one thing I'm not finna do. I'm not finna dumb down my intelligence for nobody. I'm just not gonna do that. And a lot of these guys are doing that. A lot of these YouTubers that are that you can tell are PBC fans or whatnot. They want to sweep under the rug, like they want to sweep the accomplishments that Terence Crawford has under the rug. And it's like, bro, a lot of guys are just casuals, don't really understand boxing or know boxing, right? So for Canelo Alvarez to say that Terence Crawford has not fought an elite fighter, now this video is gonna piss some people off, because not only am I gonna dissect Terence Crawford's resume, but then I'm gonna question you and say, okay, well, what makes these other fighters an elite fighter then, right? Elite fighters, right? Because here's what we do. Here's what we got to do now. Because now I gotta question I gotta challenge your boxing IQ. If you downplay Terence Crawford's resume and say that he's never fought any guys, then how are some of your favorite fighters considered elite or considered top guys, right? And by your favorite fighters, let's go ahead and make you guys mad. How is Triple G considered a top fighter? How is Inoue considered a top fighter? Both of these guys are great fighters, but let's keep it 100 here. If we're talking about the guys, if Terence Crawford has never fought an elite fighter, what's the criteria to become an elite fighter? And then once you say what that criteria is, and when you still say that Terence Crawford's resume does not meet that criteria, then I want you to ask, how does Inoue or Triple G's resume meet those criteria? All right, so let's go ahead and go down Terence Crawford's resume. Then we'll go down Triple G's resume. Then we'll go down Inoue's resume. And let me just start by saying this. I think that Inoue and Triple G are phenomenal fighters. I do. I have my issues with Triple G. Some people know that. But the reason why I'm choosing to get on Inoue and Triple G, right, is because at one point people had Triple G as rated as the top 25 greatest fighters of all time, right? Inoue has been rated pound for pound number one. By many guys. So that's why I'm choosing these two guys. All right, so let's go ahead and get on Terence Crawford's resume. And then, again, we're going to get on Triple G and Inoue's resume. And you know what? I might not, I don't know. I might get on, because I really like Inoue. I like Bam Bam Rodriguez a lot better, but I like Inoue. But anyway, I might get on his resume. Anyways, let's go ahead and get on it, right? Terence Crawford, all right. So his last fight was against Israel Madrimov for the WBA 154-pound title, right? Now, a lot of people like to criticize Terence Crawford. Oh, he went the distance with somebody that only had 10 fights or 11 fights, right? It's YouTubers that get on Terence Crawford by saying that, right? But here's my rebuttal to you, right? To you YouTubers, right? Well, does that make David Benavidez, and y'all know I know David Benavidez personally. I've shared the ring with David Benavidez. That's my guy, right? But I'm saying this because you got these PBC biased channels, and y'all know who I'm talking about, that'll sit here and criticize Terence Crawford for having a tough fight against somebody with 11 fights. But okay, here's my thing. How many fights did David Morrell have when he fought David Benavidez? How many fights did Guillermo Rigondeaux have when he fought Nonito Donaire? I'm just wondering, just out of curiosity, See, a lot of you guys don't realize, like, the the advantages of having a great amateur background, right? But you know, that's neither here nor there. I'm just, you know, just asking for a friend, quote unquote. Well, I'm just saying though. So if you guys it's about who you. Well, I don't even gotta get into that. All right, but Israel Madrimov was his last fight. People criticized him for that. All right, so they criticized him for whatever. All right, Errol Spence. Now that's crazy to me. How you can sit here? How can somebody say Terence Crawford has never fought an elite fighter, but then he beats Errol Spence, a fight that we've been asking for about 4 or 5 years, probably about 4 years, about 4 or 5 years, one of them. Errol Spence, who definitely is an elite fighter, he's definitely elite. Has a great resume, and Terence Crawford beat him. Now, here's the thing that, once again, some of these YouTubers like to say, right? They like to say, well, Terence Crawford fought Errol Spence, after the car accident, and Errol Spence wasn't the same, all right? Now, here's my rebuttal to that, right? Now, and they also like to say Errol Spence was weight drained, because now granted, again, this is coming from somebody who was going for Errol Spence, right? Did I think Errol Spence was the same Errol Spence when was at his best when Terence Crawford fought him? Absolutely not. I don't. I'm not trying to say that to make an excuse, but you can't tell me that you watched that fight and before that fight you looked at Errol Spence and you didn't think that, like, bro, what the heck is wrong with the Errol Spence? Even my homeboy who was going for Terence Crawford in the fight, even he texted and was like, fam, what the heck is wrong with dude, bro? Like, Errol Spence looked like something was going on, right? Granted, yes. All right, cool. Was he weight drained? I don't know. Was it the car accident? I don't know. But here's my rebuttal to that. The people like that use that as an excuse. Whose fault was that? Because if you guys remember, it's a viral video of Errol Spence and Terence Crawford behind. It was some fight. I can't even remember where it was, but they was face to face backstage, right? Terence Crawford was trying to fight Errol Spence next. Errol Spence said it himself, let me clean up my side of the street, then I'll come see you. That's Errol Spence's fault, bro. Errol Spence said that himself. Why not go the easier route? And when he said easier route, I know a lot of people say, no, he's saying the easier fights. No, he's saying the easier route by fighting the fighters in the PBC, then I'll come see you. Errol Spence said that himself. So you can't. How do you knock Terence Crawford for that? That was Errol Spence's fault. Errol Spence he did that. That was his fault. So how do you sit here and criticize Terence Crawford because of what Errol Spence said he was going to do? And Errol Spence did what he said he was going to do. He beat, at the time he was finna fight Mikey Garcia. At the time, Errol Spence only had the IBF title. He beat, next up he beat Sean Porter, and then for the WBC, and then he beat Ugas for the WBA a few years later, and then he came back and fought, and then he came and fought Terence Crawford. He said he did exactly what he said he was going to do. So how do you blame Terence Crawford for that? Errol Spence, that was his part of his plan. Can't blame Terence Crawford for that. Sorry. So he beat Errol Spence. David Avedisian, okay, cool. I don't see him as elite either. But Sean Porter, a 2-time welterweight champion. Nobody stopped Sean Porter. And here's the thing that irritates me. People want to say, oh, Sean Porter was already talking about retiring. He was washed up. Tell me where Sean Porter was washed up in that fight against Terence Crawford. Sean Porter looked the exact. He had his speed. He had his footwork. He was the aggressor at some points, right? He looked exactly the same as he does in all his fights. So show me where you felt like he was washed up at. When people say that, oh, he beat a washed up Sean Porter, give me an example of how he was washed up. Why? Because he was talking about retiring. He hadn't retired. He still looked the same. His athleticism was still there. His footwork was still there. His speed was still there. His aggressiveness was still there. He just got beat by the better fighter. So how was he washed up? He was not washed up. Washed up, if you want to know the definition of washed up, go watch Danny Jacobs versus Shane Mosley Jr. That is washed up. Okay, and again, like, I hate to do it. Like, I don't mean to sound like, you know what I'm saying, like I'm a fanboy, but it is what it is. Like, I've always been a fan of Terence Crawford. I've been watching Terence Crawford since he had dreads. All right, I've always been a fan of Terence Crawford. I just always was a little more a fan of Errol Spence because I'd seen him in the amateurs or whatnot too. So I actually seen him. So I'm a little just, you know, it's a little biasness there. But regardless, I'm not finna let y'all do that to Terence Crawford. No. Kell Brook, right? Now, granted, yes, was Kell Brook the same Kell Brook that you know Errol Spence? No, probably not. But at the end of the day, Kell Brook was an elite fighter. He held the IBF title. He beat Sean Porter. You got Mean Machine. Mean Machine was one of them guys. He's really, really good, but because he's not just this well-known guy, people are not gonna give Terence Crawford credit for it. Amir Khan. How was Amir? Okay, so Amir Khan, who was an elite fighter, definitely was elite. Had a few losses, you know, fought Canelo Alvarez. We saw what happened. A fight that Canelo shouldn't even have fought, right? Jeff Horn or Benavidez Jr. undefeated. Let me make something clear. Terence Crawford went on a run at welterweight where he knocked out every welterweight fighter, right, that he fought. And out of, let me see, how many fights did he have at welterweight? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Out of 8 of those fighters at welterweight, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 of those fighters have never been knocked out. Jeff Horn had just beat Manny Pacquiao. Whether you thought Manny Pacquiao won or lost, Jeff Horn got stopped by Terence Crawford. Jeff Horn never been stopped before. Benavidez never been stopped before. Still even afterwards never been stopped. And he moved up to fight Jamal Charlo and Danny Garcia. And he's never been stopped. Sean Porter been in there with Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Kell Brook, never been stopped. Errol Spence never been stopped. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like you can't. I would continue to go, but for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna keep going on his resume. Now I'm gonna ask you about Triple G. Now, shout out to my brother Juan the Don, who is a big Triple G fan. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and act like Triple G wasn't a great fighter. I mean, listen, I'm gonna speak on his resume, but let me just state this first. A lot of his resume, a lot of the lack of big names on his resume was a lot of it was due to a lot of fighters not wanting to fight him. Not all. It was a few fighters that wanted to fight him, but he just didn't want to fight them. But he was ducked by a lot of fighters. He was ducked by Sergio Martinez, Miguel Cotto. He was ducked by Peter Quillen. He was ducked by Canelo Alvarez at one particular time, Danny Jacobs at one particular time. He just couldn't get the big names in there with him at one particular time. But here's my question. What makes Triple G so elite, right? The biggest name that Triple G, if we're going based off, if Terence Crawford's never fought an elite fighter, that's what I'm saying. Because I do, let me just state this. I do think that Triple G is an elite fighter. I think that, well, was an elite fighter, I'm sorry. I think that Inoue is an elite fighter. But if we're going to sit there and go based off of this criteria that Terence Crawford has never fought an elite fighter, then what makes these guys elite? Because they never fought, they've never beaten an elite fighter, right? Listen, the biggest name on Triple G's resume that he's beaten would be Danny Jacobs. All right. Now, if Errol Spence is not considered elite, how is Danny Jacobs considered elite? If Sean Porter is not considered elite, how is Danny Jacobs considered elite? Right? Let's talk about it. The next biggest name on his resume, Kell Brook, a welterweight. Now, if we give Terence Crawford slack for fighting Amir Khan, how do we praise Triple G for fighting a welterweight in Kell Brook? The next biggest name on his resume is David Lemieux. I like David Lemieux. Shout out to David Lemieux. That's my guy. But those are the 3 biggest names on his resume, and I don't view any of those as well. No, I can't say that. I can't say because I did view Kell Brook as an A and Danny Jacobs as an A-level fighter at one particular time. But what criteria? Now compare those two, Danny Jacobs and Kell Brook. Compare those two to guys on Terence Crawford's resume. What have they done? Danny Jacobs and Kell Brook. What have they done on their? What have they done that guys that Terence Crawford fought hasn't done? And then let's talk about it. The rest of these guys are like C level, except for Derevyanchenko. Derevyanchenko was one of those guys that will never be considered an A-level fighter, but dude is a really good fighter. A great fighter in my opinion. I give him credit for Derevyanchenko as well. But once again, what has Derevyanchenko done that guys that Terence Crawford beat world champion? Derevyanchenko ain't even been a world champion, so that's kind of excludes that out. Other than those names that I named, Danny Jacobs, Kell Brook, and David Lemieux, those are the only world champion. Well, and Sergey Derevyanchenko, those are the only the best names that Triple G's faced. And once again, tell me what they have done that people on Terence Crawford's resume haven't done. The rest of these Willie Monroe's, Martin Murray, and Marco Antonio Rubio. I ain't heard of Marco Antonio Rubio since Kelly Pavlik. Matthew Macklin was a good fighter, a damn good fighter. But, you know, these guys aren't considered elite. So what makes that, you know, that's all I'm saying, bro. That's all I'm saying. Now, first of all, I didn't even intend for this video to be this long, but I didn't do this because I'm not even finna get on anyway, because I don't want it to be like I'm like downplaying these guys. But the facts are facts. Like, it just irritates me when people continue to do this, when they continue to talk down on Terence Crawford's resume, not realizing, like, bro, this dude has a really good resume. But if you're gonna talk down on his resume, then we can really talk about people's resume, and we can compare resumes, and we can talk about what one person done that another person hasn't, and then we'll really break down who's fighting elite guys and who's not. But you guys don't want to do that, because then that means that you will have to reveal the truth about your favorite fighter, right? Or you would just have to admit that Terence Crawford has fought elite fighters and has a great resume. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. But what do I know?